We're going to change gears a little bit here and get off the mambas, because the other big threat we have out there are baboons and leopards. Now we're going to tell you the leopard story. It's in the book, but you can read this. Now we had a herd of goats. Okay, settle down. We had a herd of goats, and the only thing that, okay, if a leopard gets wounded, and this leopard he had obviously caught his foot. He lost his front toes. He caught his foot in a snare, and it had been amputated. Okay, so he could no longer run. So he became, well, very dangerous. Okay, so the slowest thing around is the goats, as far as the animals, because the gazelles can move too fast. So he started attacking our goat herd, and he didn't wait for us to take the goats out to graze. He liked to eat in the afternoon. So he'd wait till we put them back in their solid log barn. We had logs like this, upright. And so he would stand up on his hind feet and use his paws, and he would break the ties, and he would open those logs. If a leopard can get his head through a hole, his whole body will go through. So he opened a hole big enough for his head, and he slid in, and we had him in 2 corrals, so he slaughtered the first corral the first night. All 20-something goats that were in there. He ate some of them, and then he left. Well, the only thing we have to fight a leopard with is fire. So the guard, realized he was in there, but he was by himself, so he just built up his fire real big to protect himself, but there was nothing he could do for those goats. So the leopard leaves. Now, we still have half our goats. So the next night, to kill him, first of all, they approached the police department that day and begged for a machine gun. A cop, they said, we will pay a policeman to come out here with a machine gun and take out this leopard, because we know he's going to be back tonight. He'll come back after the rest of the goats. Well, the police refused. They said, oh, no way, because they're a bunch of chickens. Believe it or not, we had lions attack one village, and they refused to go after the lions, too. I mean, they had machine guns. They said, well, they misfire sometimes. I said, yeah, well, if they misfire, you're dead. So anyway, the police wouldn't come out. So what they did was they got the best village hunters in the area. They all came with their bows and arrows, folks. That's all they had, was a couple of spears and some bows and arrows and fire. That leopard surprised them all and got there just before the hunters did at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and he again got behind the corral, opened it up, went in, and the first thing they know is they're hearing all the goats screaming and yelling as he's in there swatting them around, killing them. So he kills all the goats, and the guys opened the corral door, which is solid logs. They opened the door, and they thought they were going to kill him with fire. They all had firebrands, and they all shoved their firebrands into the door. The leopard charged them, knocking them down, and went through the fire. Now, any leopard that has lost his fear of fire is a deadly, deadly animal, because it means he's afraid of nothing. He jumped a 6-foot fence and was gone. So now we have no goats left. So the men put together a cage, and they used one of my guard dogs as bait. They put together this solid log cage, put the dog in there, knowing that the leopards love dogs. They love dog meat. So they put the dog in there, and then they took a fresh chicken, a live chicken, and they butchered it and peppered it with cyanide tablets. We could buy cyanide crystals in the local market to kill rats with at that time. You cannot anymore. They spiked a government official's drink with one of them and killed him in 20 minutes, so then they took it off the market. So anyway, the chicken is now spiked with cyanide. And so the leopard comes that night, and they just let him come. And of course, the dog was having heart failure. I would be too if I was in a cage and the leopard was approaching. He jumps on top of the cage, gulps down the chicken, and then he starts to scream within seconds, because that cyanide doesn't take long to start burning in your stomach. And of course, he forgot all about the dog at that time, and he actually ran, jumped over the 6-foot fence, and ran about another 50 yards and keeled over dead from the cyanide. And that's how we got the leopard. But what I need you to understand is that God's going to send you places where it can be very dangerous in the natural. But like I told you the story this morning, He can and will protect you if you stay in His will as you go onto the mission field. And so I just want you to know that just because I'm in a dangerous area and I've almost been killed 20 times, I never said quit. If you in your life are a simple kill, as they call it, where, I mean, if any little big, any problem comes along and you decide, oh, I'm not going to deal with that, I'm just going to run. Don't be a runner in life. You don't want to be a quitter. You want to stick to it and go for it and make it happen, because that's the only reason I'm still out there. We have assisted more than 10,000 children in just the last 10 years. The first 10 years, I don't even know how many children we assisted. But I want to tell you how simple it is to help somebody. I have my nursing degree and I take my medicines out there. We had a case where dysentery, the kind of diarrhea that kills an adult in 3 days and kills a baby in 12 hours, kills a child in about 24. It's a type of diarrhea that's super deadly, and it takes a special kind of medicine to stop it. So I happen to have 1,000 tablets of that medicine that I bought here in the United States, and I took over there with me. The hospital had nothing, and suddenly this case of dysentery hits all the 3-year-olds in the area. We don't know why, it was just the 3-year-olds. But 2 and 3-year-olds just all of a sudden came sick. So every morning at my mud hut at 5 a.m., I would have 50 or 60 mothers sitting there begging me to treat their children because the hospital had nothing. I took those 1,000 tablets, and believe it or not, 2 tablets broken into fourths is all it took to get these kids healed with a lot of prayer. Normally it takes 3 tablets per child, but we were able to do it with 2, and we saved 500 kids in a matter of 3 weeks. You never know how God's going to use you. It can be the simplest of things. If I just happened to be there with the right medicine, but if I had said quit because things had gotten tough for me, those kids would have died. So you never know how God's going to use you when you go out on the mission field. And I encourage all of you to continue seeking Him for His will for your life, because then and only then will you find true happiness. So I just want to say God bless you all, and thank you for listening to our story. I hope that you've learned from this, and I hope that you take away some of the wisdom that I've tried to pass on to you guys. But one thing, don't ever say quit. Okay. God bless you. Bye-bye.